Okay, so I thought we'll today maybe reflect upon identification and disidentification with our true nature, but that later. And before that, we'll, yeah, hi Jasmine, good to see you. Before that, what we'll do is that I thought we'll do a short guided meditation session, those of us who are interested. And I'm sure you would be interested. That's why you connected, knowing that it's a meditative dialogue session. And then we can share our reflections and discuss a bit also. Yeah? So let us close our eyes. And if you are here in the session, try to follow the kind of the guidance of the meditation, because otherwise we are not in alignment with what's happening. Yeah. So if you have joined today and would like to explore what we are going to do today, it's a request, gentle request, that allow yourself. Many a times resistance comes up from the mind that I don't need it, and maybe let me just go for the dialogue and not for the meditation. It happens, it has happened with me also, and that's why I know it fully. So allow yourself to have that resistance also, but don't follow the dictate of that resistance. It doesn't matter if the resistance is there. Allow yourself to follow the guidance of the meditation. Yeah. And then we will later on reflect upon whatever we want to reflect upon. Yeah. So we'll close our eyes, all of us. Take 3 deep and long, slow breaths, inhaling from the nose and exhaling from the mouth. And if you want, you can also make a sound from the mouth while you're exhaling. And now staying with the relaxation that's there after these deep, long breaths, staying with the breath. Keep on taking slow, deep breaths. Now the normal breathing can pursue. If it's slow and deep, it's nice to calm. And also observe that how the mind tricks in between and would not allow to stay with the breath. As if something important is missing if I stay with the breath. Now, through this consciousness of breath, we will throughout the meditation stay with the breath. Through this consciousness of the breathing, let us come into our bodies. Let us settle down in our bodies. Become conscious of how you are feeling in the legs, at your feet, the soles. Become conscious of your arms, the back. How is it feeling in the body? Become conscious of the neck, of your face, ears, mouth, nose, how it feels when the breathing is going on, and your head. So let us completely settle down in the body. This is our house. This has been gifted to us. So we'll just make ourselves home in the body. This is the instrument through which we do all the work. And with this same consciousness, which made you aware of your body, let us now go into the feelings. How am I feeling right now? Not theorizing about it, just connecting with the feeling. Not even labeling it. There is no need to label it. Just connecting with your consciousness, becoming conscious of the feeling part. It doesn't matter whether it's sad, good, unhappy, happy, doesn't matter. We have this power of consciousness through which we become aware of anything in us. So using that power, I become aware of my feeling, my emotions. And we don't need to go into the story part. We will not go there. Now with this same consciousness, can we become aware of our thoughts, opinions that may be coming and going, maybe a few judgments here and there about a person, about a situation. Just noticing that they are there, just becoming conscious of their presence. Also recollect, how do you feel when we are clouded by thoughts? How do you feel when we are clouded by overwhelming emotions, intense emotions? And now, suddenly, notice all of them, the thoughts, feelings, bodily sensations, as nothing but a cloud. Clouds, lots of clouds. Clouds of thoughts, clouds of feelings. Many a times I get lost in the cloud. Many a times I don't know that the sky exists. I just know the cloud. Overwhelmed and lost by the cloud, in the cloud. So can we notice our thoughts which come and go, our feelings which keep on changing, and our bodily sense perceptions, our opinions in the mind, our judgments in the mind, as nothing but passing clouds. They come and go and come and go. How do I get to know about them? Through this consciousness, through this knowing that is present in each one of us, pure knowing. It just knows, it does not do anything else. It just knows. It knows an object, it knows a thought, it knows a feeling, it knows a sense perception, and it knows its own self. It is a self-aware presence of consciousness. Just like sun, you know how the sun is. It illumines everything else. It sheds light on everything that is there. But for itself, it does not need any other light. It is self-illuminating. So just like that, our consciousness is self-illuminating. It knows itself. And through the power of consciousness, I am able to know a thought, a feeling, something from the world, or about my body. So when we talk about, just bear with me, for these few moments. When we talk about identifying with our true nature, we have lots of signals which are there in our day-to-day life. Whenever I experience suffocation, suffering, insecurity, fear, anxiety, I don't feel nice about it. Have you ever heard of a person who is jealous and very happy? You will never find that person. And there is a signal why we are not comfortable being angry, jealous, full of victimization, full of blame, full of hate, resentment. Why we are not comfortable there? Because that's not my true nature. That is just a passing cloud in which I've just gotten trapped. I've forgotten that I'm the sky. Just because the cloud was passing by, I got lost in the cloud and I knew myself as the cloud. Although the cloud is also something happening in the sky, appearing in the sky. So it's not something separate. But what is lasting and permanent, what is absolute, is the sky that never changes its position. So when I know myself as this presence of light, knowing, or consciousness, through which I am able to know things, thoughts, feelings, everything, my stories, my opinions, my ideas, then I am relaxed. Then I am really, really relaxed. That who am I? I am this light with which I am able to see, know, perceive, judge, calculate. I am this light of knowing. Now, many of us may be very, very skeptical about it. Oh my God, I've heard it so many times. Now, the idea is to those of us only who are interested, because this cannot be done without interest. The idea is to anchor and stabilize consciously ourselves as this presence of knowing or consciousness. In theory, we all know. In theory, we all read it. It's nothing new that we are talking today. But in practice, it needs a long time. Many a time, a lifetime passes by. So let us, those of us who are ready, let us take a vow that I'll remember again and again my true nature. I know that I will forget again. I will get lost in the story, in the drama. I will know myself as an opinion. I will know myself as a judgment. But again and again, I will come back and remember myself as this presence of awareness, presence of consciousness within me, owing to the presence of which I know everything. Yeah. So this remembrance has to be a practice, if one can call it a practice. This remembrance has to be a continuing practice. And here we feel relaxed. So the moment I feel relaxed, that's the, you feel liberated from inside. There is this inner freedom. That's the signal that right now I'm knowing consciously myself as this presence of consciousness. And then you will see again and again, a thought will come. Many a times you will be able to see the thought and maybe not get involved. Many a time thoughts are so intense, feelings are so intense that we get dragged into it. And again, we feel so limited, narrow, insecure, full of fear. And then time for me to remember my true self again. That's why mystics have placed so much of importance on remembrance of our true nature. In theory, we all know, all of us who are here today, there is no doubt that I have that we don't know it conceptually. But I think what we need to do is slowly, if you want, you can open your eyes. I think we can move out of the meditative space, yet stay in it and reflect together. So I have no doubt that none of us is not aware of this. Gita talks of this. If you have read some spiritual text, that's where, the immortal presence within you that never dies, is never born. But the thing is that the moment I read something, immediately the mind says, oh, now I know. Now I know. Oh, that I know. That teacher I've heard. Oh, I know what he says. So the thing is that mind thinks, the thinking is that now I know. Okay, tell me the next step. But the thing is that we don't really know. We only have a theory in mind. And that theory has not really become our practice. And it's really paradoxical, at the same time ironical and very funny, that in order to be fully my own self, my true self, which is never separate from me, I have to put in a lot of effort. So before I become effortlessly myself, my true self, before I become effortlessly myself, I have to put in a lot of effort. That's why when we talk of people who are so-called enlightened people, they have a standing of their own. Read about their lives. They really done a lot of practice. If you have seen musicians who practice so much, look at the way their fingers move on the guitar, for example, effortless, but we don't see the effort they have put into that practice. We don't see that. We just see the effortlessness with which they play a guitar, as if it's melting in their hands. But we rarely focus on the effort. And this is actually, why we talk of effort, because we are born in laziness. We are born in dullness and inertia. And that's why, to truly know our own self and shed the layers of ignorance, I have to remember. Why? Because I'm born in forgetfulness. I will again and again get trapped into a thought, a feeling, a sensation. Aisa lagega, maybe I will get something if I think about that story. But no one has got anything from those stories. And we are not something special. We are not going to get anything from the stories. All that we are going to get is realization of our true nature, identifying with our true nature and disidentifying from the thought, feelings, and sensations. Yeah. Yeah, so I think that's where I wanted to kind of direct us towards the dialogue today. And now, whenever we feel free, those of us who want to share something, if they have doubts, questions, we are not sure if we'll find all the solutions, because so many forces are at play, but we can definitely reflect upon it.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, Rakhi, please.
Yeah, so I was listening, and yes, I am also theoretically, I am also kind of, aware ki maybe this is the right way of living, or this is the right way of doing. And again, we should not get caught up in our story. And what I have observed is that sometimes I frequently get caught up into the stories, and then knowing the fact that no, you can go back, but sometimes it really becomes difficult to go back, and then you feel you're just stuck. You should be uh, doing this, but you're just not able to. It's like just taking one step, that's it. But वो one step कभी कभी इतना difficult हो जाता है कि I don't know, then I feel कि मतलब पता नहीं, मतलब मुझ में वो नहीं है ability या क्या, I don't know.
Yes, absolutely with you, Rakhi. And I'm sure all of us would resonate with what you have shared. And I think we must also take this opportunity कि जो हमारे साथ हो रहा है, wherever all the challenges that we face, each one of us goes through that. This is not your personal challenge. It's actually challenge of mankind. So we are not alone, first of all. You are not alone. You are not the one who is dealing with this attachment to the story for the first time. है ना? What did Buddha say? Buddha said attachment is the cause of suffering.
Yeah.
And he said it for all of us. He said it for himself also. And can I remember? Because the moment I begin, as you were sharing again and again, I get caught up. Although I do not want it, but I get caught up. No? So when I get caught up, can I be honest to myself that, hey, here I am suffering, and I must be definitely attached to something or the other. So just honestly admitting and moving on. And knowing very well through my own experiences कि यहाँ से कुछ नहीं मिलेगा, यहाँ से कुछ नहीं मिलेगा, क्योंकि again and again that
सच में कुछ नहीं मिलता. What only you get is pain, suffering. That's it. लेकिन पता नहीं फिर भी caught up हो जाते हैं. I think that's being human. And then वो वही हो जाता है कि you just tell yourself, okay, you're just being human और कुछ नहीं है.
Yeah. So we have to tell ourselves that this will happen. This is my journey. And I also have to tell myself that this is not my highest possibility. So I don't have to get stuck here.
Yeah.
So mother क्या कहती है? Mother कहती है only animal, a dog, a horse. It will remain a dog forever in this lifetime. If I am born as a horse, I will remain a horse forever throughout this lifetime. I may be a better breed of a horse, but horse I will remain. With human birth, it is not a limitation. So humans are born in ignorance, born in falsehood and forgetfulness, but that is not our highest possibility. We can become the purity, the divinity that is, talked in mystic literature. So we have the capacity to self-exceed. माना मैं अभी कीचड़ में हूं, बार बार मैं फंसती हूँ कीचड़ में, but this is not where I am supposed to be all my life. And दूसरी बात ये भी है कि हमें कहीं ना कहीं एडमिट करना पड़ेगा कि उस कीचड़ जो है ना, अभी मुझे कीचड़ लगता नहीं है, उसमें अभी भी कुछ उम्मीदें हैं मेरी.
एडमिट ही सबसे बड़ी डिफिकल्ट स्टेप हो जाता है. आई थिंक वो सबसे चैलेंजिंग होता है कि आई थिंक व्हेन यू एडमिट, then you have taken at least that one step, and then you're going to move forward. But sometimes just admitting that okay, I'm stuck becomes very difficult.
बिल्कुल. Yeah, I think shamelessness चाहिए, बिल्कुल shameless. Yes, I was after this person. Example दे रही हूँ. Maybe you were after a person. I was after a person for 10 years. It has not given me satisfaction. I am suffering each moment, and I want to end this suffering for myself. So the ego consciousness in us, it actually doesn't want to surrender. Why? Because अरे मेरे 10 साल मतलब व्यर्थ गए, 10 साल waste. But I don't realize that अगर 10 साल waste वाली बात तो गए नहीं. I learned my own experiences. और दूसरी बात, अभी आगे की जो जिंदगी बची है, उसको गलत गाड़ी पे गलत ट्रेन पे चढ़ गई तो बस गलत ट्रेन पे ही चढ़ी जाऊं, चाहे पता ही लग गया कि गलत ट्रेन पे चढ़ी हूं, उतरू ही नहीं. So I think it requires
उतर जाना चाहिए. हाँ,
exactly, पता लगने के बाद उतर जाना चाहिए. चाहे आप कितना भी आगे बढ़ गए हो, है ना, लेकिन जैसे आपको पता लगा कि इससे बेटर एक पाथ है, मुझे लगता है उसी समय जो आप बात कर रहे थे ना, ऑनेस्टी, मदर सेज सिंसेरिटी इज द कॉर्नरस्टोन ऑन दिस पाथ. Without sincerity, nothing will happen. So if I am sincere, honest, as you were saying, then I will notice that yes, I was having expectations and that did not get me anywhere. I am just torturing myself, suffering again and again. How long do I want to continue this? So I think one just has to become absolutely hopeless in terms of where happiness is concerned, my own contentment is concerned, कि वो कहीं से भी नहीं मिलेगी, किसी को भी नहीं मिली, हमें भी नहीं मिलेगी. And it's not that you become उदास, although उदास का एक बहुत अच्छा सुंदर मीनिंग है संस्कृत में, you know. So we become hopeless that the happiness I will not get from anywhere. Can I become responsible for my own inner happiness? Is that a possibility? Then I can give to the world. है ना, क्योंकि अब मुझे उम्मीद नहीं है, लेकिन मैं फिर भी क्योंकि इतना अंदर भरा हुआ है, now I can give. And when we were, you know, talking about this practice of identifying ourselves as this consciousness again and again, when we stabilize ourselves in this practice, only then that fountain of giving would come out. That you have so much that it's brimming full, so you give without expectation. क्योंकि अब happiness का आपके पास अपना खुद का source है ना. अब मांगने की जरूरत नहीं है किसी से. अब देने में इतना joy है क्योंकि अंदर भरा हुआ है. Yeah. And it takes time. Practice है ना, takes time. And again I will falter, I will fail, I will again and again expect from people, but then I also have this signal of unease. मुझे uneasy feeling होगी, मुझे suffocated feeling होगी, मुझे
वो आने लगती है.
आने लगती है वो.
पहले समझ में नहीं आती थी वो फीलिंग. हाँ. लेकिन I think with practice वो थोड़ी सी समझ में आने लगी है वो फीलिंग कि कुछ तो गड़बड़ है. बिल्कुल बिल्कुल. तो वो गड़बड़ हमने पहचाननी है. हाँ, कि अब गड़बड़ हो गई, मैं फिर से चिपक गई किसी चीज पे जाके, है ना. और वो बुद्धा का एक छोटा सा फ्रेज याद कर लो, अटैचमेंट इज सफरिंग, यू नो. इन दैट वेरी मोमेंट आई नो दैट अगेन कुछ ना कुछ पकड़ लिया मैंने. Yes. Yeah. And I think we also, you know, this talk also reminds me that we almost reclaim our power back if we take the charge of our own contentment and happiness in our own hands. कि कहीं से नहीं मिलेगा. I am responsible for my contentment and happiness. And I think then things change, because the way we relate in our relationships, we usually relate from a sense of lack. कि मुझे कुछ मिल जाए वहां से, और वो कभी मिलता नहीं है. So now the relationship changes. Now, since I don't want things from anywhere, now I just spill it out. So it changes, you know, our relationships, the dynamics changes. And we also reclaim all the power back that we were giving out to people, situations, and life happenings. We reclaim all that energy back. And with that energy, we can do so much. We can offer ourselves to the world, to wherever the work that you do, in whatever form that we want to. Yes, absolutely. So Ashpriya is sharing, we know that the process does take time. We need to be patient, and yet we get impatient. Yeah. And you know, when we are getting impatient, you know, usme again we have to catch that it's again the mind at play. Yes. So the mind is saying, "Arey kuch milega, but future mein." No, only then we can get impatient. Yes, you will get that full state where you will be happy, but future mein. While the fact is that when I am actually anchoring myself in this presence of consciousness, knowing myself as presence of consciousness, it cannot be that you are impatient. It cannot be, because we are not wanting to be anyone. You're not wanting to become a special person, because only then the impatience arises. So can impatience also become a stepping stone on the path? That the moment I see impatience coming, it's just another trick from the limited mind. It just wants to become something, takes me to the future, takes me to the past, you know,
and never allows me to be fully here as consciousness itself. You know? So states are states, states will come and go, but the consciousness never comes and goes. Yeah. Yeah, so there is no, I would not say there is a better state to be. Although one can say here, Ashpriya, I would like to say that when we knowingly, consciously become aware of our true nature, जिसकी आज हमने बात करी, when we knowingly become aware of our true nature, when we take the charge of our own contentment and happiness in our hands, that's definitely a state which is also helpful not only for myself but also for the whole of existence. अब देखो ना जो calamities हो रही हैं आजकल, world wars and greed and so much ambition, power play at work, it would not be a possibility if all of us put some effort in knowing our true nature. You know, only an ego wants to be kind of, you know, more and more and more. Why? Because it feels a lack. And owing to the fact that it continues to feel this lack, it wants to fulfill itself through power, through money, through relationships, you know, again and again, and it never gets fulfilled. So all this, so much trouble that happens in the world, it would not necessarily happen if all of us take the responsibility of our own contentment and happiness. कि वहां से नहीं मिलेगा, can I become my own in charge? तब मैं किसी को टॉर्चर नहीं कर पाऊंगी ना. मैं क्यों किसी को एक्सप्लॉइट करूंगी? मैं क्यों ज्यादा पैसा चाहूंगी? मैं क्यों ज्यादा पावर चाहूंगी? क्योंकि मुझे कुछ ज्यादा चाहिए ही नहीं. अंदर इतनी कंटेंटमेंट है, because I don't want anything more. I just want to spill it out, and that spills out automatically.
I don't know to what extent I'm audible. So my question is that, you know, when this is from my own example, absolutely, it can be different for different people. So when I am not interacting with world so much, there is a lot of mindfulness which is there, and then I feel that I'm present, and then there is no future which I'm looking at or, you know, aspiring for. And I mean, I don't know whether I'm more connected to my consciousness, but I feel more connected to my own self. But then when I have to go out. I know that, you know, I have to. I mean, I can't. I personally feel that I do belong to the community, and there is work to be done in the community, and that is where I want to be also. But then when that is happening, I am, you know, somewhere all those interactions, energies, everything, you know, are hitting me, and then I'm getting a little bit impatient because there is a worldly goal also. I mean, worldly, not in a materialistic way, but otherwise worldly goal to reach. And so that is when I think, you know, impatience creeps in.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautifully said. So Ashpriya, let me just say it out loud again, since your voice was cracking in between. So I feel, you were saying that I feel more connected within, more mindful and aware when I am not bombarded with things from the world. But when I go out in the marketplace or in the world to do some work or maybe interact, then I see that I do get impatient because there may be some goals to achieve or, you know, things to be done. Yeah. So that was your what you shared. Yes, beautiful. And it's absolutely something which all of us go through. In my cave, in my solitude, I may be absolutely wonderfully aware. The moment I go out, the senses become active, more active, because they are bombarded with the sense objects. You know, and that's why masters, some of the masters have said senses first of all, to control the senses. They've also said to master one's senses. They've also said, some of them have said that senses are your enemies. Why would they say that? No? So, although again, there are different views, I'm not settling down here that senses are our enemies. Why they would say senses are our enemies? Because they move us. They sway us from the center. ऐसा लगता है कुछ है जो वहां मिलेगा. No? So अभी मैं बिल्कुल ठीक थी. I was totally content when I was within. But the moment I go out, I interact with someone, I, maybe interact at workplace, and I become impatient. Oh my God, I'm not able to achieve this. What will happen? So senses have a power to make us shift to the center of ego consciousness. That something is lacking. Something is lacking. Something needs to be done before I can be content and happy within. Happy is not like cheerful all the time, but a contentment within. Yeah. Now, Mother and Sri Aurobindo talk about refinement of senses. They don't talk about shunning the senses as other people have shared in the past, which may have their own benefit also. They talk about refinement. Okay. Now, how can I talk about refinement? This is how I can talk about refinement. First of all, there is an understanding in me that nothing can add on to my true nature. Nothing can be taken away from my true nature. That solidity has to be there. That itself needs a lot of time. That solidity itself needs a lot of time. Knowing fully in your cells of the body that nothing can be added if you achieve anything. Nothing can be subtracted if I do not achieve the goal. This knowing has to be absolutely solid. Once this is solid, now I embark upon something which is an interesting work. I embark upon something which is, I think, worthwhile to be done. ठीक है, तो मैंने एक initiative उठाया, which I want to give myself to. Now there will be challenges there. Continuously, I will be faced with challenges. Again and again, I have to remind, yes, I will work through the challenges. Yes, because why I want to work through the challenges? Because this work is important. I want to put my energy in here. Knowing fully that even if I achieve this work, complete the target, nothing can be added on to me. And if I fail, nothing can be subtracted. So now I can go deeply into the work. है ना? अब देखो एक fearlessness है मेरे में. I'm not insecure anymore. Now I can actually embark and dive into the work. Sway मैं तब होती हूँ जब अभी भी कुछ है जो lack feel करता है. And it is good that we sense that swaying that you were talking about, that pendulum-like movement from the center within to the lack outside. That the senses kind of betray me again and again. So this pendulum-like movement will just tell me more and more that I am yet not solid enough in my understanding. And you will see that people who were really people who have done a lot of effort in their practice, inner practice, they were the ones who actually were able to upturn and change the system. उनको हम अभी तक याद करते हैं because they had such inner solidity within that they were able to embark upon something कि ये ऐसा कुछ change कर देंगे जो आज तक किसी ने सोचा नहीं है, because they were able to fully give themselves to the work. And the work does not dictate कि अब वो कितने वर्दी हैं कितने वर्दी नहीं है. हम क्या करते हैं, we allow the work or the results of the work to dictate how much I am worthy, how much I am not worthy. है ना? अगर मैं हार गई तो मुझे लगता है I am unworthy, I must not be fit. अगर मैं जीत गई तो मुझे लगता है वाह वाह देखो मैंने किया. So that leads us to the swaying through the senses. So I feel, and you are absolutely, I resonate that I feel like my places in the world, I would like to go out, interact and work with people. So if that is your calling, do it, definitely. But take every challenge that comes to you as a path to progress, as a step to progress. And what is the progress? It's the inner progress, inner solidity that we have to achieve. Unshakable solidity. And then you can put yourself, give yourself in any work that pulls you. And even if it sways, what will I do? I'll take it as a step to my progress. कि देखो हिला के चला गया, कुछ ना कुछ उम्मीद बांधी होगी वहां से. I must be expecting somewhere. So it's amazing, actually, paradoxical also, that I put myself into the work, I put my whole energy, I do not bother about the results. And parallelly at the same time, I do bother about the result. I want this to happen. But I do not lose my sanity over that, because there is nothing to prove. So this is what we call as detached engagement. Detached engagement, that you are in the world, yet you don't want anything from the world. It is not going to give you anything. That's where you can give your best. Yeah. And I think that's where we come back again to what we started with: identification with our true nature, knowingly knowing who I am truly. Unknowingly, we are that. जब हम बात करते हैं divine or Brahman or Satchidananda, unknowingly we are all that. But knowingly, I am suffering. Knowingly, you're not yet that. So can I consciously become aware of this true essence of knowing or awareness, which never leaves me? Know myself as that, and then put myself into work. Yes, detached engagement, we can do so much more. Absolutely. And we don't drain energies in detached engagement. This I've also felt with my own self, that whenever I become attached to some work or person, I lose my energy there. I lose my power. The moment I do the work fully, yet I do not demand anything from in return, I think it's so much of joy. So much of joy and energy fueled, as if you're fueled up, charged up, because you are directly connected to the source. And we need more people like that, who can absolutely be detached, yet at the same time be engaged in the work also. So thank you for bringing that up. Yeah. हमारी ना बार बार उम्मीद जुड़ जाती है, and we have this nature, sticky nature somehow, which has to be transformed again and again, no matter with how beauty I may be starting a work, how detached action that may be in the beginning, we have a tendency to get attached to the action. It's just an old habit. So that's why we need awareness and vigilance. The moment I get insecure, I suffer, I suffocate myself, I become limited, can I become aware that again, some or the other attachment has come? Even to the work which may sound very divine, So the work may be a social work, sounds very divine, but I can attach my ego to the social work. So this attachment can happen at every level. It's not like it cannot happen. It can especially happen at so-called spiritual path, that although I'm doing something like social service, and yet I'm so attached to my work. So I think this is what we need to be cautious of again and again, be aware of again and again, that this suffocates me, this limits me, and I don't need to be there. Become aware and let go of that little hope and little attachment that kind of popped up again. And it will pop up again. As long as we are alive in this body, as long as we have this physical consciousness, some or the other attachment will pop up again time to time, time to time. I'll have to become aware of it. I'll have to sense that unease that we were talking of in the beginning, that you become very suffocated and uneasy. Recognize it, let it go. Do not have any hope from that. Be completely responsible for your own contentment.
Hi, Monica.
Yes, Abhishek.
I have one question. So I'll borrow the words we have been using in the discussion so far. So detached engagement. So what we are saying with this, just discussing a bit conceptually here. So as per the concept, in a particular task or work, we are saying that don't be like, give your best, but don't be emotionally invested, or don't be invested to the extent that failure or success, you're not attached with the outcome, but give your best. So I would assume that a person who is practicing this might feel a certain sense of emotionlessness towards the task. At least, considering the highs and lows, sometimes you go in and out of it. So kabhi you will feel the emotions, but typically we consider not having an emotion to a particular task or a relationship, like friendship or whatever, a bad thing. So what is the, as per the theory, or what can you tell me about that part? Like, how do you balance that? Is the emotionlessness a bad thing? Because as per the concept, it sounds like it's going to happen more or less. So I hope you got the question. So that's what. Yeah.
Yes, I got, I think I got it.
Yeah.
So I'll just rephrase it again so that I know that I have understood it. So you are saying that if we continue on this path of detached engagement, we practice it, it appears that it leads us to a kind of emotionlessness or coldness. So what about it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My question is, have you met all of us, have you met any people in your life who do not want anything from you, but they're very warm and affectionate? Have you met such kind of people? Has anyone met?
Mostly these are strangers that are not connected to your life, right? Whenever someone is kind to you, I feel if a stranger is being kind to you, कि कभी नहीं मिलने वाले, I feel like those are the moments I can sense this, because there's no need for them to be kind. They're being that just because they feel like it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anyone else? If we have any experience of interacting with a person who felt very warm, affectionate, and yet not emotionally involved with me. So there is a difference between emotional involvement and warm and affection. Yes, Sarakhi. Yeah.
Yes. I have a friend who has been that person to me. Yes.
Yeah.
So I can relate to what you're saying.
Hmm. Yes.
Uh,
Anyone? Yeah.
Also because I've heard people telling ke हाँ नहीं इसको तो कोई emotions ही नहीं है, दुखता ही नहीं है, दर्द ही नहीं होता है. No, but I know that she has reached a place where she can stay detached, and yet whatever she will feel inside. So there is no, you're getting what I'm saying, right? I'm maybe not able to express it properly, but yes, I mean, I have met that person.
Bilkul. I understand. Yes. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Anyone else? Any sharing on this?
Yeah. I don't know, again, I will be audible. But so what I have seen in people, apart from people whom I have met in Pondicherry from childhood, so I mean, they have been extremely warm. Extremely warm, but yet they are detached. I know that they are detached. I had an uncle who used to write letters to me, and they were such fond letters, and full of love. But yet there was no such expectations from me that I will write back to him, or next time when I go to Pondicherry, he will never ask that, oh, what happened? You didn't write back. He'll just say, oh, did you receive my letter? How was it? And then there's this type of people whom I think I remember when I think of such detached affection. And then there are people who have suffered a lot, who have gone through a lot of pain, and they have remained sincere to life. I think they also show a lot of detached affection. And the warmth, that warmth is actually, incomparable with the warmth I have received otherwise in life, like in relationships where there are a lot of expectations. Uh, that warmth I can't even compare with anything else, I think.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah, anyone else? Any sharing from your life? Yeah.
I had a grand uncle who was, who had been solely, reading a lot about Sanskrit and, shlokas and all of that. And he was very giving. Even if I couldn't text back or I couldn't call back, it's one of those relationships wherein there are no expectations from the other person. Like, all you can do is just give. Same with my mother. All they can do is just give love to you. No expectations. Nothing is expected in return.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, thank you. Hmm.
Ma'am,
Yes, Zena. Yeah.
I think I myself is a very detached person. Before I was not. I was getting hurt for minute things. Everything used to affect me, from gestures, tone of voice, change in tone of voice, expression, the body language towards me, a person's. But now it has changed. I don't expect anything. It doesn't mean that I don't care. I care. I have love, affection, compassion, empathy for that person. But I don't expect anything in return. And it's a beautiful feeling. Somewhere it hits, at core level it hits, but when you give it a thought and when you consciously think, then there is another thing which hits that makes transition. So yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. So Ashpriya is sharing, I think such people are really fearless. And that also brings us to the question, what really makes me fear? What gives rise to fear in me? Because there is some image of myself, something that I want to protect. And what we are talking here, that if I truly take the responsibility of my own inner contentment and my own being, then I really don't want anything from people. I don't want to protect anything. No image I want to protect. So why would the fear arise? Why would the fear arise? And this warmth that you all were talking of, what Abhishek has asked and you shared, this warmth is a side effect of detached engagement. So it's not that we are emotionless. One is emotionless, because we have to see that what is the frame of reference that we are taking. हमारे पास frame of reference है Bollywood movies, at the best Hollywood movies, right? Some serials that we may have watched as kids or as adults, right? These movies leave a strong impression on us how love should be. And we see that the love is absolutely interfering and emotionally entangled. That's what we want from our lives. And we see that we do not find love and warmth and care there. There is just a mess. In that kind of involvement, poking into each other's lives, it's just a mess. We don't really love each other. We are just wanting, a transaction is going on. Tu mujhe de de, tu mujhe kuch kar de. But while we take charge of my own life, when I take the charge of my own life, I cannot be atrocious in my relationship. I would not demand. Now true love can be. And true love is far different from what we see in Bollywood movies. That's the, almost, if I can say, the poison that we have got into our heads, that, oh my God, I don't feel anything. I think it's beautiful that you don't feel anything, yet you have warmth to give out. And this warmth is not your doing. Warmth is an happening, is a happening. Just like, sunlight is a happening. Since the sun is full of light, sun rays are happening. Sun rays are not an effort that the sun has to put, oh my God, I have to give out some rays. No. So just like that, when we go closer and closer in touch with our true nature, take the charge of our own contentment and happiness, do not have hopes from the world for our contentment and happiness, this wells up from within. The warmth and affection wells up. It's a natural side effect, just like medicines have side effect, this also is a side effect. So this will be different from the involvement, emotional involvement that is almost conditioned into our brains. This would be a different, and many people may think you don't really care, but you know that you care. They also know that you care, but it's not that kind of a care that you're calling every 10 minutes. Are you okay? Are you okay? You know you are available, you are present, you are silently in your prayers, you want the best for the person, and that's a different kind of love. But if we compare it to the Bollywood or serial kind of emotional involvement and call that love, then this may appear dry and cold. I absolutely agree. But we know, as you were all sharing, that we have interacted with people, we have been in touch with people who are very warm, very affectionate, but they have no demand from you. They don't want anything from you.
Ma'am, also a realization that there is no assurity that we live tomorrow or not. So if we realize, and if we think, if we just have one day to live, do we really spend time in keeping grudges or getting hurt to an extent that we get depressed? We need to realize that there is more to life than just one bad day. There is more to life than someone said something. There is more to life.
Very powerful. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
But ma'am, at the same time, don't you think that for a lot of people, this drama of life is so real that they can't see beyond this? I mean, I see in so many cases wherein the connection between siblings or friends or whatever, I mean, all those emotions are taken so seriously that people just fail to see the bigger picture. I mean, it is so obvious, but still people can't see it.
Agree. And we also have to realize that we have been there as well.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So and we still fall into a trap again and again. So I think it's just a journey, you know? Yeah. This thing that Zainab was sharing, that this thing has really helped me, because when I was kind of initially diagnosed with this illness, it really helped me to change my life. And whenever there would be a thought or a feeling which would be overwhelming, the story that would be overwhelming, in the moment I would remember my disease, that anytime it has the capacity to come back, So I would remember that, and I would say that, is it really worth, because I can die any moment, and is it really worth to have this story in my head? And I would immediately let it go, immediately, because as Zainab was sharing, that there is so much more to us than these, getting trapped in little demand stories and here and there, the dramas, as we were talking. And yet, having said that, I think we all have our journeys. We do get trapped at times. When we know better, we don't. So we also have to allow the process to unfold. And knowing of our true nature is not a luxury which is only for a few people. You know, कि एक साधु बैठा है और वो अपना ट्रू नेचर रियलाइज कर रहा है वहां बैठ के, और हम क्या करें, हम तो कॉमन लोग हैं, हम नहीं कर सकते. So I think this knowing of our true nature, which is a constant journey, you know, it's not that it stops once you have one little step here and there. It just continues and continues. This knowing of our true nature is our birthright. Without this, we cannot ever be content and happy. Without this, we'll always have temporary pleasures, but never have a lasting contentment. So I think this is our birthright. Each one of us, Janam Sidh Adhikar in Hindi, each one of us is must be compelled to realize one's true nature. It's not for a few little people who are more privileged and I am less fit for this journey. None of us is less fit. We all deserve to be content and fulfilled. And only then this world can become a better place. We cannot expect governments to change and politicians to change, yet we remaining in our traps. We cannot expect that. So each one of us has to take charge. The baton has to be in our hands. Each one of us. एक को भी नहीं छोड़ सकते. Such is the game. So we must, I feel that we must spend some time, whatever we talk today, you know, the practice, the continuous remembrance of our true nature, establishing myself in my true nature, knowing myself is this presence of consciousness, not letting myself getting trapped in any images, opinions, or labels, or dogmas, or definitions. I think that freedom is my birthright and I must spend time on it. It must be a constant practice. Bina practice ke, I cannot be effortlessly truly myself. संकल्प की तरह है, no? जैसे as if I have to take a संकल्प. हवन वगैरह करते हैं ना, you know, Hinduism they do havans. They take a संकल्प, you know, that मैं संकल्प लेता हूँ. So it's almost like that sacred, that I take a vow that I would make better and better of this life and realize my own nature more and more deeply, more and more deeply. Why? Because that's what I'm born for. That's the treasure worth having. There is no treasure in the world which is in the world which is worth having than this treasure. And this treasure is infinite treasure. One cannot stop. Ki bas khatam ho gaya. The journey goes on and on and on. Yeah, anything more anyone wants to share? So I actually came across something really beautiful from the mother's commentaries on Buddhism, you know, this thing called Dhammapada, where there are verses from Buddhist tradition, very, very relevant, very practical from our life. And I thought I'll share it. I'm just making a PDF out of it and I'll be sharing it on our groups. And those of us who may not be on the groups, I can share personally also. And that would be something which would be worth reflecting upon. You know, we'll also be taking up that in Friday study circles, jo Friday ko 7 o'clock hote hain. We'll also be taking up reflections on that.
I have one question.
Yeah, yes, Abhishek.
So I had this question when we were in the beginning of the discussion. So I'll borrow some words which we used. So, you know, again, purely theoretically speaking and conceptually speaking, I think one of the words we used in the previous meeting, if I remember, was soul consciousness, right? When we talk about the self and knowing yourself and, you know, consciousness. My question is, what is the theory on this? Are all human beings the same? So basically, if each and every individual tried tries to reach to their part where they're trying to know themselves, are we all the same? And maybe a adjacent question would be, if we are the same, is there any value to getting to know other people? Because it seems like all human beings experience the same emotion, right? Whatever label we have to give them, happiness, sadness, anger, jealousy, so on. So if the emotions we feel are same and our journeys look similar, like the fact that we are sitting here and discussing about how the journey would look like, it seems like there is some pathway. Maybe people are on different paths. So yeah, are we saying that all human beings are the same theoretically?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my question.
Yes. Anyone wants to share on this before I share? Anyone has any reflection?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, actually, we have discussed about this 2 sessions back. We have discussed that base is energy. So, according to quantum mechanics, we all are matter and energy, and all energy is interconnected. So, yes, there could be similarities, but it depends that energy level at how it vibrates, at what frequency, on at what level. So I think when it matches that vibrations, when the frequency matches, we get that, yeah, that person is similar to me, or yeah, we have some compatibility. Yes, that person is like me, thinking and likes, dislikes come like matches to me. But with few people, we feel like our energy is getting drained by being around them. And there our energy doesn't match us. So yeah, it's all about energy.
Yeah. Thank you, Zena. Anyone else? Any reflections on what Abhishek was sharing?
Again, to push the theory a little bit ahead. So I understand that in our journey, let's say whatever place from A to B we are trying to reach, which is 10 kilometers away. I feel like with what she was sharing her example, if I'm 7 kilometers done in the journey and you're 7 kilometers done, I feel like we can relate. But assuming everyone does take this journey and they reach their final destination, the question is, would we all be considered similar? Yeah.
So first of all, Abhishek, imagine that you are in a room and there is bright sun shining outside. It's a glass room. It's a glass, like everything is glass. The walls are glass. And there are curtains. Now the curtains are like very thin, delicate curtains. If you know the stuff called chicken, it's a very delicate stuff, cloth stuff, and on which there are many different patterns, designs that are there on the cloth. Now each curtain would have a different pattern. Now, if I say that all of us have this divine presence, and since divine is one, the presence is one, so what is then we must all be alike. There is a little thing here, because when it comes to manifestation, like we all have separate bodies, separate permutation combinations of intellects, abilities, skills that we have. So that thin curtain of individuality is what we are. Thin curtain in material sense, what we call our true individuality. So imagine that I am in a room, what this example that I was sharing, there is this thin curtain. It has a very special pattern on it. Now the soul would be something like the sun, shining bright. Source is the same, but when it reflects through the curtain, falls into the room, the pattern that it gives on the floor is a different pattern than the pattern in the next room, which has similar delicate curtain, but the pattern, the design is different. And that's why it's beautiful to meet people, because I may see that I may have a few limitations in my character, in that, the thin curtain, which can actually, we can transform it, we can work on it. It's not that my limitation remains a limitation throughout my life, that can be changed, that can be refined. But I see that the other person has a different permutation combination of that thin individuality. And when the source, the divine light, beauty follows, that falls through that curtain, that is a different beauty. And that's why we relate with people we find beautiful. That's why I'm able to appreciate something in the other. That look here, the divine is shining through in such a form. So this is what Sri Aurobindo and Mother call as psychic being, which we have talked about in many, many sessions earlier also, or the true individuality, that each one of us is born with a particular set permutation combination, which is changing obviously, but in nature it is same, it is one. And that's why Mother says, go dig out, find what are your inclinations, what are your preferences, what invokes your interest, give yourself to that, what is of beauty in you. So this is what I would like to say, that in a sense everything is same. Yeah, in a sense everything is same, the sun, which is the divine consciousness, the soul consciousness. And yet when it comes to the material level, me as a person, we are all unique and very, very special. No one is alike. So when you were asking, are we all the same? No, no one is alike in that sense. Each one of us has something very special to give to this world. Each one of us, but we have to polish it, we have to nurture it, we have to find it, dig it out.
Is it okay to say something like 99.99% we are the same, but there's a 0.01 difference? Does that sound okay?
Yeah, I don't know about actually percentage, but
Yeah, I mean 99% same, 8% difference, something like that. Like mostly we are similar, but little bit difference. Does that example encompass what you're trying to say? Just
actually I still would not be able to say yes, because I never really thought about percentages, but maybe people have talked about percentages. I don't know about it.
Yeah, I mean the main point I was hoping was like when we go, like whenever we are talking about all these things, it sounds like when we listen to other people's problems that they are similar, and sometimes you feel that, well, everyone, like there's one idea also that everyone is kind of a different version of yourself, sort of thing. So
Yes, you can say that. Yes, you can.
yeah, so sometimes the question comes, right, like why interact? But yeah, what you're saying does make sense, right? They might be different in a very small, particular, unique kind of way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. And that's why we love to interact with people. We love to listen. Why? Because everyone has a special way of expressing. Yeah. It's not that you would love to meet and interact with everyone, but there would be people, why that happens? Because our soul is as if behind a brick wall. So we were talking about this curtain of individuality, true individuality. Now I am so full of burden of this mental opinions and ideas that the sun is shining there, the divine presence is right here, but I have become like a brick wall. So nothing really special comes out of me. All those complaints and me and my past stories, nothing really special. So that true individuality that we were discussing, which makes us special, that has not yet been discovered. That's why many times it's boring also to listen to many people, because there is a brick wall, there is nothing special about them. And that's how we are. We have to dig out, we have to put effort to clean the dust of that curtain so that the light can pass through. It requires a lot of effort, dedication. So potential is there. Potential is there. The divine potential is absolutely full in everyone, but it has to be awakened. Effort has to be put. Otherwise, we are all just like another brick in the wall. Nothing special about me. I only become truly ordinary yet extraordinary when I work on polishing myself, work on removing the dirt again and again from the curtain, because dirt has a tendency to stick. So again and again the curtain gets blocked. I have to clean it. I have to clean it. That cleaning has to go on for a lifetime. That's what we call tapasya. Purane zamane mein, people do, yogis would do tapasya. And now All of us are yogis. All of us have to do the tapasya. It's not only few yogis that they have to do. Yeah, anyone else? Anything more we shall discuss, or we can also end here? And why must we do tapasya? Because it brings us joy. Uh, it brings us joy. Whenever we are on this path of self-cleansing, finding our true nature, getting into it, brings us joy. It just has to happen. It will bring you joy. And that's what is the motivation to keep on going ahead. I recognize one weakness in me today. I clean it, I polish it, I make myself better. That's joy. Fixing myself up in the outer personality, becoming a better and better and better version of myself. That brings us joy. That's why I must be on the path. Yeah, anything else? Anyone? Any last comments? Okay, so I'm assuming there is no more sharing at the moment. Thank you everyone for joining, and thank you for sharing your reflections, insights, questions, and everything that you shared. And thank you for your presence in the session today. Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Abhishek.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Madhura.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think that certain
Bye.
example has been really, really good.
Yeah,
I think so relatable.
yeah,
Thank you so much.
yeah. Thank you. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye-bye. Bye. Thank you.
Bye bye.
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 Bye. Bye-bye.